Let's call this August 11th, Eugene Toxic Right to Know Program Board meeting. Begin. I'll be in the order. So, here. Nope, not yours.
Oh, wait, is that the agenda?
No, that's for
Mallory.
Mallory.
Okay.
So we're going to start off with introductions. Do you want to start, Wendy? Since you didn't get to Wendy last time.
Sorry for missing last time. I'm Wendy Cecil, industry advocate.
Amber Everly, industry.
Marcus Baxter, industry.
Joe Epley, staff. And I'm Andre Phelps. I am a neutral member. Wendy, will you just talk a little bit about yourself, because you weren't here last time?
Sure. So, industry advocate for Thermo Fisher Scientific out in West Eugene. We specialize in fluorescent molecular dyes out there. So, that's kind of what we do, what my background is. But we have a strong sustainability program also. So we partner that along with the Toxics Board to not only be compliant, but see what we can do to make things better out there. To do something else.
Oh, that's great. We just went around, because we had a little bit more last time about who we were. So. And I'm assuming there's no public comment. And
Oh, that's right. You weren't here.
I remember. Sorry. Sorry,
Right.
I know. All right.
Amber Everly. I work for Oregon Ice Cream as the industry representative. We make frozen novelty food right here off of Grant Street in Chambers. I have history with Right to Know programs. Do not have direct influence with our company now, but work closely with the individual who does.
And my name is Marcus Baxter. I'm the compliance officer for Aurora Innovations. We make potting soil and specialty fertilizers off of kind of Prairie and Highway 99. So we do have some toxics that go into the fertilizers, and that's why I'm here.
And I'm Joe Epley, staff person, and I am here to support the board and efforts to make the program as best it can be.
And I'm Andre Phelps. I have a degree in environmental science and engineering. I worked as an environmental consultant for a lot of years. And, right now I'm in the process. Okay. So, no public comment?
No public comment.
And staff report?
And staff reports.
Oh, it's here.
Oh, yes. There they are.
Sorry.
The dynamic duo.
We just went around and introduced ourselves to everyone. Okay.
I'm Christine Zillical,
So, staff report?
Staff report. All right, I am just going to go through all of the things that I sent out to all of you since the last meeting. It wasn't quite as much as it is sometimes, but it was still a lot. So if anybody has any questions or needs more explanation on any of the items, just kind of raise your hand, and Wendy and Andre will help me notice that somebody has something to say. Otherwise, I'll just keep going down the list. So at the last Toxics Board meeting, I asked the Toxics Board if it was okay to update the program member and meeting information webpage, noting that we, by city policy, no longer offer meeting minutes. So I did that, and I just sent you guys kind of a snapshot to show you what that looked like. There was another City of Eugene policy change at the City Council and Mayor level, saying that, and I sent information out to you, there ended up being 2 emails about it, that all boards, committees, and commission members, so such as all of you on the Toxics if you attend a public hearing and you want to speak on something related to the toxics program or something that we're working on, when you sign up to talk at the public forum, you would just say that you're with the toxics board, and that would move you up to the front of the line. Because sometimes there's a lot of people there to talk. So just as, you know, kind of honoring your service as a board committee member, just kind of bumping up on the list for that. Sent a couple of updates from planning and development staff on the Envision Eugene urban growth boundary recommendations and some of the work that's connected to the subcommittee that Lisa Arkin and I have been serving on, specifically for the Clear Lake Road development area. And then there was a follow-up news release, kind of just more broadly announcing that same information. As a follow-up to the last toxics board meeting, I checked in with the city attorney on toxics program audits and just clarifying if that meant more than me just kind of doing desk audits of the hazardous substance reports. So she pointed me to the, I felt kind of silly, the hazardous substance tracking instructions, which is not, I mean, it's an excellent reference, and we did a great job cleaning it up, making it user-friendly, but when I'm trying to think of something that all of us do, that was not the first place I think of. But so that was an excellent reminder. But then after reading that, I remembered, because to get myself kind of grounded in the program, I read through all of the toxics board meeting minutes just to see what had happened with the program over the years in terms of the board level. And I found procedures that had been adopted for specifically audits kind of after the program had gotten off the ground and up and running. And so I was just kind of like using that as a basis. So I don't know if we want to pause and talk about this a little bit more, because I'm going to kind of, it's not specifically on this agenda, but we can put it on the next agenda. Because what I essentially need is direction from the toxics board. Do we want to update our procedures for any new reporting businesses that I identify that the first visit will also include a site inspection? So to be qualified to do that, I would need some type of training, which I'm absolutely willing to do, and I think it would be beneficial in a lot of the other work that I do. But you know, so that's something we need to talk about a little bit more. So the question on the table is, do we want to stop and talk about this now, or do we want to postpone until possibly future toxics board meeting?
How much other stuff do you cover in staff report?
Like 10 more items. Nothing really big except the inventory process, which I don't need any direction or there shouldn't be too much discussion on.
I'm kind of new. Is this the general turnout as far as, you know, 4 people each time, or would it be beneficial to hold out till another time when there's more board meeting members here? Or is this fairly typical and we should take what we get as far as attendance wise?
Well, ideally, I would love all of you here all the time, and that's why I work really hard to try to coordinate, you know, dates with all of you when you are all available, but things happen. So to take care of official business, I need at least 4 of you here. So that's considered a quorum of the board.
Okay.
So as long as 4 of you are here, we can have a meeting, we can take care of business.
All right.
But, you know, if I had my way, it would be perfect. Everybody would be here all the time.
So I'm a little bit thinking that this might get into more of a discussion of if this is in the charter.
This is in the charter.
It is in the charter, to do site inspection.
To
Okay.
do audits.
To do
Well, to do-
site inspections.
Yeah, well, to do audits, and so the specific word that was focused on at the last toxics board meeting that brought the question was, in the charter, the word processes is in there. And did processes mean more than me doing desk audits? Because I had been going by the procedure and adopted in 2002, which was after the first round, meaning when the program got up and running. Site visits were done at the very beginning, back in 1990s, I think it was. that it was just desk guidance unless the toxins board wanted to change the procedure
Do you
or to
know,
mean something else.
do you know anything about the training that's involved?
The training?
Yes.
I would start with probably some OSHA training. And then probably, I mean, once a year I try to do some kind of environmental regulations type training. But that's a whole delete program, so. But just because I like to know what I'm doing and talking about.
I would suggest that you send out the information you have and like the ideas and let's put it on the agenda for next time.
Okay.
Since we seem to have plenty to cover this time, it's a little business to hopefully wrap up. And then hopefully everybody can be here and we can read the materials, come in, have our discussion and make a decision.
Okay.
Yeah, and just clarify, a clear summary of why we're gonna have that discussion,
Okay.
and then really what the training would be, what it would mean, what we're actually, you know.
Yeah, what the audit would entail, like,
Right.
if you're gonna be
Yeah.
getting
What
people
you're
to get
expecting.
pallets, you know, that's, if you came into our facility, for example, and said, well, I need to see exactly how much of benzoic acid you guys have, that's a little bit of work, you know, so that takes time away from production as well, so, kind of what exactly that would entail, how much, like, are you actually gonna start weighing everything, and then, if so, you know, then it would be a lot of work to do a thorough, you know, if you're just coming in to look and make sure that there's nothing on the ground or not actively dumping stuff into the creek while you're there, you know, that's one thing, but to actually, you know, do the math and check to make sure that it, well, the numbers that I reported actually match what we have on hand. I mean, for each facility, that's gonna be a lot of work for you.
Yeah, so that's why I think we're requesting you should kind of summarize that up, send it out to us,
Yeah.
let us read through it, so we can come back and have a discussion.
Yeah, well, and that would be, you know, what the toxins board has to decide, well, what level of inspection is that in? Because then there's also the other, you know, time constraint component where, you know, I'm only funded 85% of my time and I already have a really full plate, so, you know, there's gonna have to be some give and take somewhere as well for you to have this done. So that's definitely part of the decision process. So I will send this information out again, and I will, and this is just me clarifying, and I'm going to add it as a discussion decision item for the next toxins board meeting. And then there was another memo on environmental justice focus group, Clear Lake overlay zone update. Anybody have any questions about that one? As a follow-up to the last toxics board meeting, Lisa brought up the topic of the EPA's new carbon reporting requirement. So I spent some time doing research on what that was about and what it meant and what federal regulatory programs it was connected to, and kind of summarize that with a lot of links for even more detailed information for the toxics board. So another question for the toxics board, is this another item we want to add to the next toxics board meeting for discussion and decision?
Is the question that carbon dioxide be added to the list?
No.
What's the question?
What is the question? Let's see. So it's carbon, carbon dioxide, and black carbon.
The question is, should we add those to the topics list?
Yeah, eventually, that's the question, yeah.
So I would say yes, table that so we can come prepared
Yeah,
to look at the definitions, look up the data and see if they meet the definitions.
So I will resend this memo as well.
please do. I was looking for it today, and for some reason, I couldn't find it. It might have been in there, but I didn't, so.
Okay. All right. I will add that to the next one. And then I have a question from the City of Eugene's, and I didn't send any information out about this, the City of Eugene's information technology staff. Right now, they're doing a bunch of server upgrades, and the city council has kind of maxed out their webcast server. So they need to borrow room from like other city boards, committees, and commissions. So IT staff was asking if from now until fall, the Toxics Board would have an issue with our meeting videos from 2012 and 2013 not being available.
I don't have an issue.
I don't have an issue with that, as much as the fan base is gonna be crushed.
Right, exactly.
Okay, but can we put something on the,
A note.
on the website
Mhm.
that says that they are available upon request if needed?
Yeah, and they
And then
will
we'll
be,
return at such and such
Yes.
day and time.
they will return
Okay.
probably, you know, like
Do we have
October.
any I mean, that's our public record or something, right? Does it have-
Well, in 2012, 2013, we were still
so-
having meeting minutes, so those will still be on there because they're held in a different place. But yeah, we did start, I think it was 2012 when we started the videos. Okay. So I've been picking away at the inventory, number 6, of identifying businesses, and have completed the process of identifying both Licensed Technologies and Hagen Advertising and Graphics. I have a couple more in the works, and I'm trading phone calls with about 20 others just to try to get their side of the story for final determination. Just by what information I have gathered since my initial research to see if they even qualified to receive the letter, I'm guessing in the end this inventory is probably going to come through with about 10 businesses, 10 newly identified businesses.
Out of the 20 that you're trading phone calls with?
Well, just all together. So out of the initial list started with 186, or ended up being 186 businesses. We're probably going to get about 10. So it's a lot, tedious work, but just those businesses will help with our structural funding issue for the time being until we can take other measures. And for the most part, people are being cooperative. There's one unable to locate that I'll track them down. So. And that is all I have, unless anybody has any questions.
And perfect timing.
Oh,
Keeps us right on time. Yay.
Okay, should we move on to the chemical list discussion? Wendy, are you going to start that?
Yay. All right, so we have, is it 3 or 4 different requests to either add?
Yes, Joanne wanted to speak.
yes, well, I'm following up on a request from Andre that I forgot to do. So I just want to make it clear to the Toxics Board that all of these individually listed items, we are going to need to vote on all of them individually. So I kind of tried to make that clear in the agenda, but I just wanted to specifically state that all of those items need to be voted on.
So each of the 4 bullet points in the agenda need to have a vote. Each is a separate request to either add chemicals or remove chemicals from the reporting list. And our job is to determine if those chemicals meet the requirements and the definitions for being on the list or not. If they don't meet the definitions, they shouldn't be on the list. If they do meet the definitions, they need to be on the list. So, if anyone needs it, I do have copies of the definitions. Again, remind me, Joe, I had it highlighted somewhere. It's either meeting the characteristics of hazardous waste or being listed on EPIRPA.
Which one are you talking about?
So what are the requirements for being on our required reporting list?
Oh,
With that, okay.
Let's see.
It's in the beginning of my, one of my
Chemicals, it's
Yeah.
not federally listed in sections 302 and 313 of EPCRA, the Clean Air Act, the CAA, the Clean Water Act, HERCLA, or RCRA.
Okay.
So,
Or meets the definition of hazardous waste. So I have the definition of hazardous waste here, we can print out all the other lists. Okay, so the first request is, I have a couple. To add 6 different chemicals based on the criteria that they meet the definition of hazardous waste. This is a copy of an email that I did up and sent to Joe at some point. I only have one copy, but I'll send it around. It has the chemical, the CAS, whether it's an EHS or an PBT, whether it's radioactive, links to safety data sheets, which I don't think I printed out, and then the notes as to what its justifications are. So if we wanted to, we could reference all of those safety data sheets to get the data that we use to decide that it meets the definition listed. And I think they may all have fallen under corrosive. And the definition basically for corrosive, if it's aqueous, pass that down. pH less than or equal to or greater than or equal to 12.5, or a liquid with steel corrosivity tests.
In your email, Wendy, I saw 2 of them are as flammable.
Okay, 2 of them.
Yeah. Also.
And I think in the justification there, I listed they're flammable by DOT, which correlates to characteristic of ignitability for hazardous waste, which has flashpoint parameters. And those are listed again in the references. And I listed but did not write. But I did, I did verify with 3 references for each one that they met these definitions.
So these ones here that you have as flammable, they're DOT. Do you know what so you say the flash point of this one is less than 43 degrees, you know that?
I did not list it.
Okay.
Sorry, I also did this about a year and a half ago.
That's okay.
So does anyone feel like they need more information in order to vote on these? Like I can print all the safety data sheets and bring it next time?
From
or
what
do
I
you-
saw when I was looking at it, it all looked like it was pretty straightforward to me.
Does anybody have any reason not to take a vote on these today? Does anyone else besides me want to make a motion since I actually submitted the original request?
Meeting formalities?
Yep.
I know, right?
I can't.
I move
I move to add these 6 chemicals to the list based on their characteristics for corrosivity and flammability.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous.
So then the next step, are we now requesting city, who is it that's gonna add these for us?
City manager.
Oh, yeah, so the next step is that, so I'll just back up to last meeting for those of you who weren't here. The toxic board members in attendance approved the updates to the hazardous substance tracking instructions. So any decisions we make on the chemical list updates and those updates to the hazardous substance tracking instructions will be forwarded to the city manager to do an administrative rule process. So this information gets publicly posted for I think it's 2 weeks for comment. And just to make sure that all of the businesses in the toxics program are aware that we are trying to make some changes that may impact them, I'll send a special copy of the notification to everybody.
Okay. The next request came from Willamette Valley Company to remove petroleum distillates as an ignitable characteristic chemical from the list. And this one, I do have plenty of safety data sheets printed. So the question is, does petroleum distillates meet the definition requiring its listing? And I've got several different safety data sheets from several different sources, so you can look through that one and then pass it around if you want. There's like 4 or 5 more here, but in none of my sources that I could find, but this one I made like 10 copies of. In none of the sources that I could find did it meet any of the definitions for being on our list. So it's didn't meet the ignitability characteristic, which is a liquid containing less than 24% alcohol and has a flash point less than 60 degrees C. This was what I was looking at. There didn't meet any other definitions either.
Can I just ask, I know Lisa had some of the questions on this last time. So they all have the same class number, correct?
They do, although I believe in this case, I found the same cast number had 2 or 3 different names.
Okay.
But they all have
But
the
the
same
names are different.
identifier.
And I think, do you know anything about this? Because it just seems a little, I mean, are they just thinking about things?
Yeah. I mean, here's, it's a petroleum product. It's one of those things that has other side effects, but it seems to fall outside of all the definitions I found.
Do you know what it's used for? I forget what.
It's a solvent. It's a solvent.
And I was reading today that I believe it says in the instructions that solvents are not reportable under the toxics anyway as well, for use for cleaning, nor are chemicals used for R&D or something of the sort.
Well, yeah, research and development.
Yeah, well, that, and then also, I'm pretty sure I read
There's something
hazardous
that,
materials used for cleaning
Well,
machinery maybe, but.
yeah.
I think there's
well,
a very specific requirement there.
Yeah, because if it has to do with like manufacturing, the manufacturing process, the manufactured product, then yes, it would be. So it depends.
Okay, well, there you go.
But R&D, no.
Yeah, well, yeah.
You don't have to report your chemicals used to clean bathrooms.
Right. Correct.
So I'd like to make a motion to remove it from the list because it does not meet the criteria as an ignitable nor any other characteristic.
I second that motion.
I don't think we're ready to vote yet. So I just wanted to make sure that we have the full discussion.
Yeah.
So I think,
Anything missing?
no, I don't think there's anything missing. I think, so, but when I do a quick search, it comes up with kerosene as a petroleum distillate, so.
And that's listed on one of the documents.
Okay, and so kerosene would not be listed, would not be reportable.
Its flash point does not fall
Okay.
within the reportable range.
Okay.
I trust, that's why I have so many sources, because I myself was very confused. I thought that was very weird. And so that's why you'll see I have like 8 or 10 sources, because that's not one I took lightly at all.
Right.
But it just came up time and time again that the flash point fell outside of that range.
Mhm.
I kept rereading the definition, double checking the sources, and yeah, kerosene, and there's a couple others, like I said, same cast number but by different names.
Can you remind me what the 4 characteristics?
So there's ignitability, so how easily it catches fire, and it's got specific flash points for liquids, and avoid the gases or solids. Corrosivity is 1, and that for liquids is based on pH. Reactivity is 1, so how unstable it is with being air or water. And then toxicity, which is based on a very specific test called the T-CLEP. The toxicity characteristic leaching and procedure. And if that T-CLEP data comes out within a certain range, it has to be listed as toxicity, not toxic, which is weird.
And those numbers for that last,
The toxicity.
yeah, are those,
There's also a list, the toxicity list.
0.5% filterable solid.
Table 1, I did not print. Are you looking at the T-CLEP list?
I'm not, sorry, I can't.
It's okay.
I was just reading.
You want to do that? Yeah, if you could, I'm looking
Is
at
it
the reference. TCLP. You could also look up hazardous waste toxicity. Yeah. So here under toxicity,
Is this the method that is it gonna be listed in
that one, it probably, so we're not gonna wanna read 100 pages about that. And so you can do a search on this page to search for petroleum, to search for kerosene, and any of the other not acronyms, but synonyms that we had.
I mean, my impression of this is
With the cast number.
is that you are very thorough on this, and I believe that it doesn't meet any of the criteria, although it seems like it's something that would probably was meant to be in the program.
It seems odd, but I can't find any reason to argue with the request.
So I just want to remind the Toxics Board that how this particular chemical got on our list was way back in the beginning of the program before there was a review process. This chemical was just added as one of the company's hazardous substance report as a characteristic chemical, but there was no review process at the city level or the Toxics Board level to make sure it really belonged on the list in the first place. So that's how it got on the list.
Okay.
And then it just, when we did the big cleanup a couple of years ago, it just slipped through the cracks.
So, sorry Christine, I don't know if I fully answered your question, but for toxicity, there's a test method, and then they also, for the really commonly used ones in commerce, they have a published list, the EPA does, and each one is given a code, and it's not on that list, which again, seems a little odd, but based on the test data, it doesn't technically fall in that range.
Okay.
can I ask, sorry?
No, please, please ask.
So I'm seeing in this, when it says it, this is a mixture of C10, C14 naphthalene. Just out of curiosity, or naphthalene? Something that's,
They should be, but.
yeah, that's what it says.
And that's
And this is very, very bottom on it.
on the stuff manual.
Yeah.
But another name for the distillates is naphtha, so
It falls under the same cast number.
it looks
Same
like they're a
kerosene.
combination of naphthene, paraffin, and there was another.
Kerosene.
Yeah. That's what kind of that.
Okay. Well, I don't have it yet, throw it, so thank you for bringing this.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I revisited it several times, because I just felt like I was missing something, because it seems weird to say. It's not in the code, it shouldn't be on the list.
I know plenty of guys that when I tell them they shouldn't smoke cigarettes around diesel, say, oh yeah, well you can just throw a cigarette right into diesel and it won't burn, so.
They've tried it.
I tell them, do that on your own day.
Yeah, and don't do it at work.
Yeah, don't do that at work.
Don't do it anywhere around here.
Okay, any more questions? Any more comments? Should we bring it to, no, I can't bring it to a vote. Are there any motions?
I'd like to, bring a motion to remove it from the list because it does not meet any of the characteristics set forth by the charter.
Any seconds?
Second motion.
Okay, bring it to a vote. Should we remove petroleum distillates from the list?
All in favor?
Aye.
Alright. Yay, that's two done. Oops. Okay, the next one is to add the chemicals and results of the annual federal regulatory chemicals list. That's what Joe prepared for us. And is it these 5, caprolactam, DDE, glycol ethers, naphthalene, 2-chloromethylene and hydrogen sulfide? Is that what you sent to us? February 2nd memo?
February 2nd memo, yes. There's 28 pages.
I did not print all 20 pages.
Did anybody else need to make copies of them?
I forgot to grab it apparently.
Okay,
but I did
quick
print it, but-
question, are we asking to review 28 28 pages worth of chemicals? I see
Well,
that.
I was hoping people would review the information in advance, we could talk about any issues or questions, and then vote on it as a group.
Yeah, I didn't
Because
get
they
a
are
chance
all
to review
similar
this
enough
tonight.
to vote on as a group? Or just because?
No, they're not similar enough, but I tried to provide you with enough
You
information.
need to vote with the suggestions or the, yes,
Yeah.
okay.
I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna suggest we do the next one first, cause it's easier.
Sure.
And then, I don't know, I didn't wanna print 28 pages to bring, so, that one seems like we might want 20 minutes just for that one alone. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so the next one was, a request to add talc, calcium carbonate, and titanium dioxide to the list. And the requester,
It's Newwood Display Fixtures.
thank you, and what they provided to us was an outdated safety data sheet for some products they use that contain all 3 of those materials. And their basis for their suggestion was because there are OSHA regulations that regulate the amount of exposure employees can handle in an 8-hour workday, which
There's
doesn't
no
have
forever.
anything to do with the toxics reporting charter. So, again, I brought the safety data sheets, I only brought 1 copy for each one. These are much newer ones, and they are also for the individual chemicals and not for the mixture.
Thank you.
So, again, you can look at the pH, these are all solids, so they're not none of them are corrosive. You can look at the flammability data for those. I didn't find that any of them were flammable. And I found that none of them were listed on the toxicity list. And none of them are classified as reactive. So I see no reason to add those.
Nor do I. When I was
You look at them and you're like, really?
Well, calcium carbonate would really
I know.
just jumped out.
Yeah.
Marcus was trying to take care of it last time.
I know. Yeah, I know, because really, I mean, but, you know, to be fair, what they were looking at, I mean, yeah, you don't wanna stick your head in a bucket of dusty talc for 8 hours a day. Yes, you're gonna have some issues, but it is not applicable to this program.
And I do applaud any business's effort of bringing
Oh,
information to the
certainly.
toxics board, because they're just trying to do the right thing.
Yeah, and I
And trying to help us.
think we should send them a thank you and appreciation for that.
Oh,
If we hadn't already, I assume that.
oh, well, yeah, I said I would bring the information to toxics board, I would let them know the decision.
Great. Any other questions, comments? Are there any motions?
I motion to not add these 3 chemicals, talc, calcium carbonate, and titanium dioxide to the toxic directional list.
I second that. Should bring to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous not to add these 3 chemicals to the list.
And that brings us just 10 minutes shy of the time allotted for that, so I think if we can add to the agenda your list for next time, that'll give us plenty of time to cover all of those. I think 10 minutes would not quite be enough.
I just want to,
I just want to say, I've been kind of going through those and doing some research on my own, but 28 pages is a lot, and, you know, for the most part, everyone I've found, I agree with your assessment, but still 28 pages,
Yeah.
so.
And I think
Looked at any of them.
I peeked at them and everything I saw looked reasonable, but I haven't sat down, because that literally would take a couple hours. I mean, you know, you did all the legwork and I would want to verify it too, so.
oh, please.
Yeah, so, maybe, following this meeting, when we go to set up the next one, we can explicitly state that that needs to be reviewed by all members, and all members need to come ready to vote on those items next time. Which you probably said, and I probably looked at 28 pages and said, oh, I'll get to this later.
Joe, are these all items that are on the various regulatory lists?
Yes.
So on the cover page of my memo, listed all of the regulatory lists and codes that our chemicals are
Yeah.
comprised of. So that's what I researched and came up with this 28 pages.
Because to me, that's actually something pretty, yeah.
That's
me
true.
too. I
That's
agree.
true.
Sorry.
So, because you're not going by definitions, you're like, I found all of these on these other lists.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, does anyone else need anything else on that?
I'm not gonna go look at the list, actually.
Okay.
Thank you for handing it.
All right.
Does anyone else want to make sure they can go through it all? And whoever hasn't had a chance, Marcus, partway through.
Yeah, partway through.
Do you want to wait and put it off until the next agenda?
I honestly trust your guys' judgment. I can't say I will have time to look at all 28.
Well, we
In
can always put it
damage
off and
detail.
especially since Marcus is new and this is one of the bigger things,
Yeah.
and I'll go through a little bit more and double check, but I'm sure Joe has done a thorough job.
But it's
Yeah.
important that you guys,
Mhm.
double check. 'Cause
Okay.
I do the best I can.
We know that.
Okay, so just to clarify, my memo from February 2nd this year, and the 28-page attachment, we're going to postpone until next meeting. And then just to go back one more step, so the request from Newwood display fixtures to add substances that we're not going to, just for the record, I'm going to send them back a formal memorandum on behalf of the Toxics Board. Thank you for forwarding this, and the Toxics Board has determined not to have these chemicals because they did not meet, within the scope of the program.
But thank you.
Oh, yes, thank you, and thank you again, yes, absolutely. And then I'll, of course, send you guys a copy of that.
Great. Does that bring us to the end of the discussion on chemical list? Okay. let's move on to the discussion about raising the $2,000 stipulated fee cap. Do you want to start that off?
Yes, so the discussion is just gonna kind of be an open discussion for all of us to brainstorm ideas for combining the Eugene Texas Right to Know program reporting with the Oregon State Fire Marshal's office reporting. And just to kind of give you a couple of next steps picture of why we're having this discussion is because we're going to use those ideas to bring, for me and the fire marshal to bring to the Oregon State Fire Marshal program staff to, hopefully make some movement with, to then come back to the Chamber of Commerce, following up with a meeting that we had with them a few years ago, saying that we would try to work on combining the reporting to garner support both at the Oregon State Fire Marshal level as well as at the chamber level to support us doing what we can to raise our state fee cap from $2,000 where it's been since 2004.
So that was a bit of my question, was if we combine, let's say just theoretically, we scrapped everything we had, just totally adopted what this Oregon State Fire Marshal did totally their game plan. Not gonna happen, but say we did, how is that going to enable us to raise our fee cap? Or is that gonna save us money, or,
well, we can't just scrap what we have.
Right,
because
that
ours
was-
is written in the charter.
yeah,
Just
I know,
Okay.
but,
Okay, so if we could,
yeah,
if we could, so what the end result is we're trying to ease the burden of duplicative reporting on all of the businesses in both programs.
I was gonna make that point too, is I think this is miswritten. I think they're two different things. There's easing the burden for the people using the program by not combining things, but at least using, standardizing all of the reporting programs, and I don't think that that's changing the $2,000 state mandated cap. I thought those were two different
I think
discussions.
the point is, we know the Chamber of Commerce is never gonna go for changing the fee cap. So we're trying to add a carrot out there, say, look, we'll get, because we can't change the charter, but if
Right.
the state law changes, it can affect the charter. So if we could get them to pass, we could say, here's a carrot to help you. You give us the increase in fees and we'll change, the reporting units, whatever it is.
okay.
I mean, so it is
Inadvertent.
even more than like two separate things, but the end result is to address our structural funding issue on top of the burden, the duplicative reporting burden on businesses.
The political sausage making.
Right.
I gotcha.
And
And
so
I'm
it's
very
very
open.
this is a very open discussion about what the possibilities are with this, and improve the program from where it was originally written, and both making it more sustainable financially and decreasing the burden, and even possibly improving reporting and access, whatever, I think this is a very open discussion, correct? Right. It's just that this is kind of originally where we sat down on, was the, how to use the.
Yeah, and because the Eugene Toxic Right to Know program has such, requires like so much lower detail and more complex detail structure, I think kind of what I see, part of the suggestion being is that we create a program so people report to us, and then I work with my IT staff to try to write some kind of interface program to go between the businesses that report both to the Eugene program and the Oregon State Fire Marshal's program, to then upload the data and convert it into the format of Oregon State Fire Marshal's.
I thought about this quite a bit today, and I think that was kind of where I landed on it as well. Just to throw this out, there's, I have to report to the Toxics Board to the state fire marshal and then as well as to the Eugene hazardous materials permit. Would that be included? I mean, ideally, it would be nice if I could sit down at my desk, I could run the reports on all the chemicals that we use, do my inventory, and then on the same day, fill out whatever information there is, and there's obviously a couple different, you know, like inert compressed gases are not covered in the toxins board, but they are for the other two. But if I could sit down and do that in a day, type it in and hit send, wow,
Yeah.
that would be really cool. So, yeah,
Yeah, we could also include the Eugene hazardous materials program.
Raffle would be another one in the conversation.
I brought copies of all the requirements for, you know, the thresholds. So for example, well, we all are fairly familiar with it. We have a list for the toxics board. This is what the hazardous materials permit looks like. There's almost 36 different threshold classes, broken up between class 1 oxidizers, class 2, 3, and 4 gases, the whole shebang. I would think that part of that interface would be the list that we have, updating that to going through each and every one of those chemicals and putting a, you know, CG, corrosive gas symbol right next to it, so that whoever's sitting down at their computer filling it out would, you know, okay, search the list for what have you.
Is that something that the IT programming you were talking about would be able to help with, coupling those up?
So are you saying you would send in information on a chemical, and for instance, we would have that listed as the CG next to it, and then that would pop up for us, we would pull that off, is that what you're suggesting?
Well, I think the way that, yeah.
Because do you want to be sending us things that aren't, I mean, I don't know
It's
if
still
you're.
publicly available
Is it? Okay,
information.
so I guess that would be
mean,
one thing
who
I
cares
would-
if it's all in one spot?
Well, it's less, it is less, I mean, the fire marshal reports are less publicly available than our stuff.
Yeah, but they are still publicly available, so we as industry don't mind if it's going into this website. You could still, it would take you 4 months or whatever, but you could still get it from the state fire marshal.
Right.
It's not like we're hiding it.
And if it is a trade secret, you can take
There's,
appropriate
ways
steps.
to work with that.
That's good.
Additionally, sorry, I would like to say, if we're gonna talk about that option, having the unit of measure converter be in there would be good too, because, you know, if we could use the toxics program website to put in all the data and have it programmed so that we could pull out a report that has additional data on it, so your classifications, your unit of measure conversions, et cetera, then even if it doesn't auto-submit to 5 different agencies, at least we have one report that automatically fills out all that information, so that now we don't have to do 5 different reports.
Right.
Yeah.
And my problem, not problem, just, you know, makes more work for me when I'm doing the hazardous materials permit is there are all the definitions there for, you know, is it toxic, you know, is it highly toxic or is it just toxic? And then I have to go through that SDS and find the LD50, and then I need to check that with someone else's, and then what I really like about the toxics website is type it in, it's a yes or no answer, it's there, I got a report or not. So that's definitely where I kind of see it going, is if we could add just layers to incorporate the hazardous materials, and then of course the Oregon State Fire Marshal. My thoughts on that is that the Oregon State Fire Marshal, their definition for a hazardous material is anything that is required to have an SDS, which includes flour.
I was gonna say everything.
Yeah, and so every year that I've done it, I kind of bang my head against the table and I call them and we have molasses here, do you really want me to submit molasses? when it's, you know, in my opinion, it's designed to protect firefighters' lives.
I was gonna say, there's also the difference between something having a safety data sheet and being required to
Yeah,
have
that
one.
is how I've read the law
Okay.
and not
Oh, I
citing
see, so
molasses.
if it's not
Because-
required to have it on site for something like molasses, then. we're
Right.
not required.
All hazardous materials require a safety data sheet, however, you can write one for anything to
Right.
show that it's not
I
hazardous. So, yeah, their requirement is vague.
And it's
and
still a lot to
confusing
sort through,
users.
cause you're not sure, you know, if it's a calcium carbonate, you have no idea what that is. It can sound scary to some people, you know,
Who
so,
is this for, I'm sorry, it was for the fire?
the state fire marshal.
State fire marshal.
So getting them to have a list of, you know, an actual list would be a big start. If we wanted to incorporate that into our list, they would actually need to have a list. If that makes sense.
So, am I hearing that, you actually like the Toxics website, the way that we have it?
Oh, yeah.
set up, that it's
Oh, yeah.
much more user friendly than the
Mhm.
other ones, so.
I mean, it's a dream, cause like, if you have a CAS number, you can type it in, and then you can say yes or no answer, and not a, well, this has an SDS, is it required to have one or not?
Yeah.
And that's an hour's worth of work to do it right, you know. So yeah, that was my thoughts on the matter.
I thought it, personally, if we, the IT people make this magic awesome program that you enter the data into our website and then it spits it out in appropriate format for the other reports. Every time those other people change their, every time the fire marshal updates their reporting requirements, then we have to update formula with for the program, which
And
I'm starting to wonder is raising the cap to $3,000 enough, because it sounds like we're making some more work for ourselves. I mean, we're taking on the work of the businesses having to do all these reports to us, generating those, so.
Hopefully to make technology
Right, and we,
more used to have.
Well-
Something like unit of measure conversions would be fairly inexpensive, would never need updated, shouldn't be too bad. The other regulations, how often do they change? State fire marshal report, has it changed at all in 10, 20 years? We still fill out a paper form for them.
they did change something though, right? Because they changed their.
They added
ordinance
carbon.
from 5 gallons, wasn't this something?
Oh, yeah.
5
Well,
gallons to
they-
500 or
They,
something.
yeah, I
They
think
made
they
it less.
bumped it,
they raised
to
the
500
threshold.
or something like
Okay,
that.
so they did raise the threshold.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then how frequently does that happen? So that would be something to look at, like, would it be something that's constantly changing?
I wouldn't know, but.
But if we're pulling information off of the toxic website and putting it into someone else's, would that really matter?
Yeah, because I guess my thought is if we're putting the data in and then the conversions happen in the background, so you know how you can go in when you're done and pull out your report, and then your report has all the conversions on there. Even if I have to go over here and now fill out this paper form with the fire marshal, if all the data is here, I can look and see, well, this threshold changed, my quantity was X, I either report it or I don't.
Okay, so you're envisioning
Yeah,
not,
yeah, it would be
not one
great
shot.
if it just auto submitted to
Yeah,
everyone, but
I think that would be a
that's
little more
like
expensive and
pie
much
in the
more,
sky.
yeah,
Alright.
agreed.
If it could just do the conversions and spit back a spreadsheet, I mean,
You could pull from for other
Yeah.
reports.
one spreadsheet with all your data, you fill out your reports and you're good, that would be an amazing step forward.
But we would have to add a lot to ours to
We-
cover everyone else's.
We would have to go through.
Or get them to slim it down.
That's not something we can do, right? And that's
So-
not where we're at.
Doesn't sound.
Right.
No, it's
But
not in our charter.
I guess what I'm saying is that if a little bit of coordination is gonna be required either way, to talk to someone at the Oregon State Fire Marshal. Or at least we could, right, theoretically. And because if they're gonna have to make a list, then, we're gonna have to talk to them about it. And maybe we could say, look, we have this awesome list right here, and we can add certain things like compressed gases, cause firefighters need to know where compressed gases are and the like. But, use this or most of this, and they could maybe do some work as well if we asked them nice and said, please.
Has Trevor already, have we already?
Well, I mean, a couple of years ago, the fire marshal and I did go speak with the appropriate staff for that program, and they said they were willing to have the conversation. So, you know, that in itself was progress, because in the past, they weren't even interested in even imagining having a discussion. So, yeah, I mean, we can ask anything, and I'm willing to.
I'm wondering, just because of, I just wanted to get my feel of it. So I just want to make sure that the three of you here are really representative of industry. So if we were trying to do something like this, it's a lot of work, and it would be a lot of, we'd have to get a lot of people involved, and it would probably require some pressure from businesses. And it mostly then will come from you all to make that important to your company. So is this something that you feel that across industry will be something that we could start something before we even get down this path very far?
Anyone that does
Anyone
my
that has to,
particular
yeah,
job,
They would,
and I said that to them, they're like, thumbs up,
Really?
let's do that.
Okay.
I've
Yeah.
gauged people to, people that would not be affected by this, people in other states and whatnot, like, probe them about it, and they're like, oh my god, if you could get that to happen, you would be, you know, set. So I don't think that getting the support would be a problem. I think, as far as the scale, the scope, and what we wanna talk about, it would be good to sit down and it would have to come from the industry reps to start with, but really look at what is it that we wanna ask for, where are the opportunities and which ones make sense, because they may not all make sense. And we could start with the gap analysis we did last year. You guys could look at what Rick and I and Amber came in at the end of it, and we kind of just tossed it together, but we kind of compared, you know, what data we need for El Dorado, what data we need for the toxics report, what we need for the Oregon State Fire Marshal. We could throw in some other ones and just say where are the commonalities and where can we make easy improvements.
And one thing I was thinking of too was that when we get to a certain point as a toxics board, then maybe using one of our toxics board meetings as kind of a workshop, and put the invitation out to all of the rest of the businesses, the non-reporting and the reporting, to come, you know, to come join us to hear what we've put together so far and have them weigh in. So I was thinking of that both for the combining different programs reporting piece, as well as when we get to a certain point on wanting to move forward with raising the state fee cap. Because I definitely want to keep the communications open, just from the very beginning. Because I think if that would have happened since this program's inception, the program itself would make a lot more sense to a lot more people today.
do you have a mass email list at all?
Yep.
So at some point, we could even send out an announcement saying,
Yep.
going through this process, we'd really love input from everybody, maybe within these parameters.
Right, within the scope.
Yeah.
But, to really get, because, it's one of the good ideas.
Yeah.
My concern was that if we are short on money, how much would, you know, I know IT can rack up pretty quickly when you're doing stuff like that, so, I guess we were gonna talk about budget at some point the next time, right?
Coming up.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's a great question.
I was just gonna say, then that gets us to what we're originally talking about, was then we require more funds.
Right, exactly.
That's where that comes in.
And that, I get it now.
And so, one of the next upcoming steps, what I would like to do, is invite the fire department IT staff in, you know, to hear some of the ideas that we're thinking about so far. So they can put like a reality face on it, okay, well, what does that mean? You know, does this seem like it might make sense? Does it seem like something that they can even do? And then ask them after that, like, can you give us a rough estimate, and then we can add that into our budget.
What I was gonna suggest is, like you said, we come up with kind of a scope and some ideas and some priorities, and before we invite them in,
Yes.
have a couple tiered proposals to say, you know, this is ideally what we'd like to do, but this is what we, you know, like to see as a first step, second step, third step, like what's feasible, what are the ballpark figures? You know, instead of just throwing a bunch of stuff at them and saying, what do you think? You know, at least have something kind of organized to bring to them.
Yeah, and send it to them in advance so they can like kind of scope it out, and ask questions, see what this means.
Well, I like the way that sounds, and I mean, I've been thinking about this for a couple of years now, and I'm happy to be here and actually talking about it in a certain way. So, I spent a lot of time today just kind of organizing my thoughts on it, and I think by the next time I could probably have some, you know, written out ideas.
The gap analysis that we did last year, does he have a copy of that?
I do, and I
Okay,
read,
you can look through that.
you know,
It definitely could have a lot more information, but that was just kind of a quick and dirty starting point.
I will reread it.
I need to do.
So Marcus, did you bring copies of that for everyone?
Oh, yeah.
Or, okay, or if I could have one, I can email it out to the group.
And then this is for that's for the hazardous material permit, and then this is for the state fire marshal. If any of you guys would like a copy of these, I have one.
I also brought the state fire marshal, at least their unit of measures and all the codes that they require.
So you have a copy of that, which is their tiers, and then also the format that needs to be input.
So you have to code everything.
Yeah.
These are for, or fire marshal.
Let me take a look.
Wow, type of storage.
Yes, this is the state, and then this is the city hazardous material permit.
Okay. I got some.
So that's just,
You think I have this one?
Exciting to think that we might be able to do something.
Yeah, and that's why you'll see all the industry people are gonna go into jitters when you say, wouldn't it be nice if we could standardize a little of it? We get very excited because, yeah, for each entry on the state fire marshal report, you need one code from each section, basically for each material.
I wonder what the state fire marshal's plan is through a long-term plan towards moving to online reporting.
And that would be good.
Well, what I do know is that they're scoping that out right now.
Oh, good.
So it's a good time to kind of,
Please consider.
yeah.
Yes.
Is there that big of a difference between the reporting besides just unit of measure and
I can
The cutoffs, the thresholds are different.
the thresholds are
The
different?
thresholds are different, and then the type of information. Toxic score wants to know incoming and outgoing. Fire marshal just wants to know the minimum and maximum approximate amount you have on site at any given time.
actually, so,
This
The-
one looks familiar.
the Oregon State Fire Marshal, their threshold is 500 pounds for everything except for EHS as opposed to ours, which is 50, give or take. And you report in broad ranges too, so anything between like 500 and 9,900 pounds, or
Yeah.
999 pounds,
Yep.
and then 1,000 to 5,000. So we're very accurate and actually account for how much we use, whereas they're just like, well, is it under 10,000 pounds? Throw a 4 on it.
Ours would be more helpful in the event of
Yeah,
Yeah.
an issue.
an issue or an emergency or.
Probably, yeah.
Well, because if
The city-
anything, it's an actual number, like if it's 30 tons,
Mhm.
as opposed to, oh, it's a class 20, well then, you know, I don't care really how good you are at remembering stuff, we're probably gonna have to look at. This is the city of Eugene's hazardous material permit. So very little accounting, just the maximum you have on, really, my opinion is they just want money, so you give it to them. Cause it's extremely redundant with that, if you ask me. So really just chemical name, maximum you had on your facility, and then where it is located. So that one's a little bit easier to
So point
reach out.
Is there a discussion about changing thresholds, or are we?
It could be a discussion, but that I think is gonna be a much bigger
That's a-
fight.
right,
That's
okay.
gonna be a huge issue,
Right.
whereas we can make smaller changes and still be really helpful.
Okay, that's what I was
Um,
thinking and wondering about.
And or back to if we can just put the data in and the spreadsheet spits it out, it makes it easier for us to gauge what goes on what report say, because the threshold was listed there for each item.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a couple of years ago, the state just went through a legislative process to like raise their threshold. So I don't think they're planning on doing that again anytime soon.
Especially not just for Eugene, you know,
Right.
which is what I was thinking about, like if it was the other way around, the state, you know, if we were the state, then it would be different.
Right.
If only.
Change the whole state for just a little less, please.
Great. So, for next time, should we, are we going to possibly invite the fire department? I see that's too early.
I think it's
I agree.
too early.
So, should we create a subcommittee or something we can work on this, or what should we do in the interim?
I would
Ideas?
volunteer, like I was having a lot of fun with this today,
Yeah.
so but by next time I'll plan on having this fleshed out a little bit more and actually a plan. So I could provide that and then we could look at it, and if anyone would like to help or coordinate, that's fine. If not, you know, we could just go over it at the next meeting.
Yeah, so I was gonna suggest something similar, like the industry folks, we could all bring examples of who we're reporting to and what the reports look like and what's being required. And maybe we set aside 15 or 20 minutes to look at those as a group and decide, can we start mapping it out, like where does it make sense to ask for some conversions or ask for some IT help, and then that would prepare us so that maybe the next meeting after that, we'd be ready to talk to IT.
I mean, I do feel like sitting on this side that, I feel like we need your suggestions. I'm not gonna be able to really offer much in terms of suggestions.
At all. Okay.
I mean,
If we
in terms of, I mean, yes, it would be great to see, but I mean, in terms of specific suggestions, you know.
I think that's why we could come with all the information, with those suggestions, and say, here's where we think it makes sense. But I think it would be good to have everybody else look at it and say, is that realistic? Is that an easy win? What's everybody else getting out of it?
I was just wondering, you know, I think, similar to the chemicals, you know, it almost needs to be presented. Does that make sense? So, yeah, because, to have a discussion about it, I don't know, maybe you would be able to have more of an idea of specific.
No, I mean, I think you guys are the experts on
Yes.
reporting.
I mean, that's really,
Do we wanna structure it like Marcus is really enthusiastic? Do you wanna come more or less present, and Amber and I'll just have like supplemental information?
That, I'm perfectly okay with that.
you okay with that? Okay, great.
And if you can have it ready for me like a week before the next scheduled meeting, then I can send it out to the whole board to kind of review ahead of time.
Okay.
I mean, I kind of feel like we might as well just start moving on it if we can't see if it goes anywhere. Yes.
I mean, cause it's gonna take plenty of time, all the steps are gonna take plenty of time anyway.
But people are excited, I mean, if we could get something, I mean, it would be great. I was also thinking on the flip side that we need to sort of flesh out what we would need for funding, for sustainable funding, and I know that some of that will come from the discussion with the IT, how much they think it might cost us, but then there's also this idea of, you know, what we would be asking for, which I don't think we're right at that point yet, but I think that at some point we would have to, you know, figure that part out. How do we, you know, we just came up with $3,000, but we don't really know if that's what we need.
Right. So it's just a name, right, for us,
Just
just
right.
make a number.
Right.
Right.
So that still needs to be worked on, so.
And I would definitely need support the idea of having something in there that increases.
Right, and that's what I was gonna bring up, some sort of cost of living or what have you, yeah. So that it's not stagnant again, because we won't have the same problem. Yeah.
At least something to account for inflation.
Right.
And if companies aren't spending time my time,
Well, that's,
yeah.
I think that's how you sell this specifically, what you're gonna say. Industry. But I do feel that, someone like Lisa's gonna have to be, the rest of the years of that, very involved also. Okay, great.
So I'll have something ready to present a week ahead of time.
I know, I thought she was gonna say in a week, could you get
I
that
did
to me?
too. I was gonna say, no.
And it doesn't have to be super formal, but it would be great, right, to have.
I'll have it typed instead of handwritten.
Okay, perfect. And Sue.
So, if I could just get really detailed for 1 second. So should I I kind of want to keep them grouped together, but should I maybe change the wording on this topic to be a little bit more accurate or reflective?
I understand it now, but I was very kind of confused earlier, so, yes.
So I think it's not, I think the way it's written is a little bit too specific. I think it's not just the converting needs sufficient, right? So it's really,
Suggestions for cohesiveness or ease of reporting throughout state agencies.
right, but through a legislative process. So it's really the full item would be kind of brainstorm what we want to have. If we were to do a legislative process, what we would like to see as a result. And I think that specifically we'll be talking about the easing the burden to the industry.
Next steps for improvements to reporting. Through the legislative process.
Like a potential legislative process, I mean, potential.
They're happy noises. It's okay.
Yeah, so I think I left the title of that as there because what it started with was Miranda getting that draft bill written, and then I just didn't really pay much more attention to it.
That makes sense.
Okay, cool. So that'll be the next agenda, and future items, can we talk about those?
So, probably more likely mid-October, I will have preliminary fiscal year 2017 budget and fee information for you. So that's the next charter mandated thing that we need to address. Then these other two items, or I think there's three now. Lost track of what's next. So the results of the annual federal regulatory chemical list, 28 pages, as well as, just learned this today.
Was it the carbon reporting?
Oh, yeah, the carbon reporting, it's right there in front of me. And then opening up the question specifically for Amber and Wendy, since you weren't here last time. A new thing that we've added to the agenda is at the end of the meeting to encourage all Toxins Board members to bring forward ideas to talk about at future Toxins Board meetings. So right now is the open call for future Toxins Board meeting topics that we don't already have on the list.
I don't have anything. I think if we actually accomplish all that next time, it would be leaps and bounds of where we have been, and that would be a really great time to bring out new topics.
Okay.
Don't
I-
forget the site inspection, we're gonna discuss that.
Site
Right.
inspection.
Oh. That was the other thing. There was something.
Yes. And I don't know how we're gonna spoke about it, but can we come up with something for when we have long attachments, like 28 pages, how we can maybe just have some here for us to review or something? It's-
Sure.
Everyone who works somewhere, it's a lot easier to print out 40 pages of documents, but it's a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. And I apologize, I just don't always have tons of copies of everything,
No,
but
no,
I was
that's
supposed to
Um,
be as paperless as possible.
or is it possible to do a projector with a computer to review them here, so we don't have to make 10 copies of 28 pages?
Sure.
For anything that we want to go through like that.
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah, that'd be great. Not too much work?
No. No, okay, I'll just bring my laptop.
Okay.
Great, plug it in. Yeah,
Great. All right.
and we have a little portable influence machine.
I'm waiting until they put those on an actual phone.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
So I think it sounds like we're gonna call the meeting to a close.
Yeah.
Okay. That's been, meeting adjourned, 5 minutes over.